Do you remember the first story that was so spellbinding that it drove you to break the rules and stay up all night? To keep reading, keep listening, keep playing? So good you forgot your life and lived there?
So good that the moment it ended, you asked yourself, what next?
Welcome to the floor. Our goal is to take you back, take you deeper, to explore and understand more, and relive that childlike wonder.
Join us as we dive deep into humanity's greatest stories, no matter how they are told, through books, movies, television, even games.
One of us does an in-depth research on our topic. One of us is familiar with the topic.
And one of us knows nothing. So the right questions will always be asked and will be addressed for anyone coming into the topic, regardless of how much you know.
Enjoy another world, another adventure, another spellbinding story. Join us on the floor. All right, welcome back to the floor. We are continuing our journey into Marvel. We started all the way with some of the earliest cave paintings. We moved through other kind of picture stories done in Egypt and ancient Greece, and then eventually to actual comic books in the 1930s and 40s as we launched the Golden Age, where a lot of heroes were created, including the ghost of Benjamin Franklin. And then we moved into the Silver Age, where fewer heroes were made, and the stories began to shift to kind of darker, more complex heroes, and not really just a simple black and white.
But don't forget about the policing system that was installed because of that.
CDA
the comic book code. Yeah.
Yeah, they were for the best. From what they were talking about, what comics were released then.
But Stan Lee will break this code after Marvel has become a giant. How would you put him, Aaron?
When does Stan Lee break this code?
Ooh, so I think it's Green Arrow.
Green Arrow's DC.
Okay. Green Lantern.
Green Lantern also DC.
Okay. There is...
Somebody's going to break this code. It's going to be big.
I can't remember what comic it was, but he decided, this is mid-70s, drugs are a problem. People are ODing. Heroin has hit the streets. And he made a comic where there was straight up a needle on the page, and the story goes, he is saving his friend from ODing on drugs. And the company said, you don't get our stamp for this. And he's like, yep, I understood that when I started making this, and we are going to produce this as a comic. And it was one of the first big breakthroughs for talking about real problems in the world. On the comic page. And then following this, they start attacking racism. They start poverty, just real live problems on the comic
Is this
page.
Silver Age, or have we moved into the Bronze Age for this?
Okay, so
this is in the Bronze Age.
So in Silver Age wraps up in, what was that? 75 is argued. So
right.
70, 75, somewhere in there.
A 6-year gap kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. One thing we didn't talk about last episode that I think is important to note, because we're talking about Stan Lee now. Stan Lee was, in fact, revolutionary in asking the hard questions and making people think. So, for example, in 1966, Black Panther was the first black superhero.
And this is during the civil rights movement.
Exactly.
This was him being like, yep, I support this. I want this part of my rhetoric and part of my kingdom I will leave behind, if you will. I
will have to check and see which exact comic he talked about or wrote, because I don't know which one that was for drugs, but that makes sense for his character, because he always tried to push the envelope and give people something to believe in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
interesting.
hope is a key aspect that
So-
he always has there.
When does Stan Lee get hired on, and what is his first comic?
Oh, so he was hired on Timely in 1939.
Oh, so he's
He's been around for a while. Yeah, he worked on stuff. He
okay.
was
Hang
not-
on. I didn't pause the recording. Okay.
Okay, so Stan Lee actually worked for Timely in 1939. So he actually worked there. I don't know exactly.
He
what
worked at
capacity.
Marvel before it was Marvel.
Well, he worked at Marvel he worked for Timely when they released that first Captain America
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
comic that we talked about in that other episode, the first ever Marvel comic.
The majority of the Marvel heroes you hear about today, he was involved, if not the creator.
I don't know how much, like, people argue that he created so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so, or whatever. And I don't know how much say he had in a lot of them. I do know that Spider-Man was his baby. And I do know that the person he went to, and I forgot the guy's name because there's a lot of names in this history. This guy's not important. He went to this guy, and it was his boss, and he was like, "I want to release this character called Spider-Man, with these powers, climbs on walls, and he's a kid, right?
Uh-huh.
And he doesn't really know how to use his powers." And so this was the first time you see a character who is not the traditional mold, because you get heroes who always know the right answer, who you look to for guidance. And this Spider-Man kid, he doesn't know what's going on. He just got these powers out of the blue. He's scared.
Right.
He's learning. And so the guy that he brought this to was just like, "No, we're not going to release that. Everybody hates spiders." That's which is true, right?
You could totally see that in the meeting. Stanley walks in with Spider-Man, and the guy's like, "Everyone hates spiders. Try again."
Yeah, like that's dumb. So Stanley was like, "Okay, whatever. I'm just gonna put it in one of like the magazines we release and just forget about it." And that's what he did. And then his boss, producer, whatever this guy was, comes to him a few months later. He's like, "Dude, remember that Spider-Man guy? We really liked that comic. I need you to write more of that."
Really?
So it was a hit magazine.
It immediately hit because people could relate to that, because there's an amount of, like, for kids, you don't really need to relate so much to a character as you just want to personify and be that character. So Captain America's easy, Superman's easy because they're larger than life.
Yeah. Well, I think Spider-Man is great to relate to, particularly because he is a teenager, right? And he gets these superpowers, and he's trying to figure out what he can and can't do. And that is the actual teenage experience that we all go through, right? At some point, we start growing.
Everyone gets that.
You begin to wonder, what can this body do? I don't even know. I have to go and find out. And that is Spider-Man's experience, and that is a human experience that we all go through.
Well, and the amazing thing that, like, there's a reason I want to teach an English class one day and teach about Spider-Man and Peter Parker and the duality between the two, because Peter Parker gains his confidence through Spider-Man.
Right.
Peter Parker is someone people don't like until he starts learning from Spider-Man. Yeah, like Spider-Man is someone that people look to, and he's witty, he's funny, he's confident. It's everything Peter Parker. I don't know why there's a B. Peter Parker wants to be internally, but he's scared to try. So with Spider-Man, he doesn't have that issue because he has that mask. And Stan Lee actually talked about this in an interview like a few years ago about how he didn't even on purpose make the Spider-Man outfit completely the way that it is, so you can't see who's underneath. But he's really glad he did, because anyone could be Spider-Man. You could be any race, any gender, any background, anything. And that's what makes Spider-Man so great, is anyone could be him. He's faceless, and he's just someone you can relate to. And the reason Spider-Man is the character I like the most, and so we're doing a little fanboy period here, is because Spider-Man begs the question. Well, he answers the question. That's basically, if no one else is going to do it, who's going to do it? And so Spider-Man is that answer. He's like, okay, nobody else is going to save the city. Nobody else is going to protect these people, so I need to. He doesn't want to. He's in school. He can do
in
a
school.
million other things. Like he could join the circus. But he understands no one else will do this, and he will step up. And it's a very powerful, subtle message.
And I think so. I've watched Into the Spider-Verse, but I haven't watched the new movie. But this totally bleeds into that that very concept of
Oh yeah, because Into the Spider-Verse, he's all different kinds of people, right? Spider-Man is Gwen Stacy. Spider-Man is yeah.
Well, I mean, there's different Spider-Mans, but yes, there's a lot of different ones. Like that's kind of the point, though, is it doesn't matter who you are, you still have that potential for greatness. That's what the Spider-Man story is.
I think I'm going to pretend to talk through Stanley's voice, and that's right. Spider-Man is in each and every one of you.
That's where I'm at.
That's where I'm at.
Joe, any questions so far?
All right. So Spider-Man is born in the Bronze Age or Silver? Where does he come in the ages?
So we talked about him a little bit in the Silver Age, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so Stanley, Silver Age, he pitches this idea. They shut him down. He's like, well, this is a rush deadline. We got to get these magazines out all the time. I'll just put it here, and it's a hit. And then they're like, hey, let's take this and run with it.
Yes. Okay, Spider-Man was 62. So he was like right towards the beginning. Actually, that's like dead middle of the Silver Age.
Oh, that's dead middle. I thought that was into the Silver.
So the problem is we talked about the Silver Age, right? So people don't know when it started. It was between the 50 and 56. And then people don't know when it ended, between 70 and 75. So 62 is kind of right in the middle there.
Okay.
But yeah, so he was born in 62. And then in my opinion, there's a lot of, I feel like with every era, someone kind of is like, everyone has a different definition of when the new era starts.
Exception to every rule.
Or whatever it is. Like we can't decide on what was the event that made this new era happen. And so I have one that I think it was. Me and Eli briefly talked about this. And so Spider-Man from 62 on was just
the flag.
An amazing. Yeah, he was something you wanted to be, because everyone goes through that story and understands it. Everyone, all the other superheroes before were a cool, larger than life hero that you read about and they're fun. But Spider-Man really relates. Yeah, impossible, but exciting. Mm-hmm. Whereas Spider-Man, you get it.
Right. You might get bit by a spider.
Let's tell him you might get bit by a spider. Let's tell him what we're going to cover in the second half.
We're going to. So as funny as it is, we're actually going to finally start talking about what Aaron believes was the event that started the Bronze Era.
Okay, so we have been mentioning at the end of our episodes recently about the treasure room, how, as Aaron likes to describe it, in the floor we go deep into things, but in the treasure room we kind of go wide. And we wanted to give people who have never been in the treasure room a little bit of a sample. So going forward, we'll probably be putting in little bits and pieces here. So here is a small clip from the treasure room. We hope you enjoy it and are interested in learning more in there.
Peter Parker, in this specific universe, just like any other Peter Parker, goes to Oscorp and like sees everything. And instead of there being a spider with radioactive abilities, it's a full vat of a colony.
Yeah.
Somehow he falls in.
Spiders or people?
Yes, of spiders, and he falls in and is eaten by them. And when he is eaten, since they have this radioactive whatever ability, they gain his sentientness. So they now become him. So
and
there is
them. Yeah, and so it's a hive mind colony of spiders that make up Spider-Man.
Peter Parker.
Okay, so we're back in our second half. We talked about some of the transition between bronze and silver, and we talked about the origins of Stan Lee, how he was at Timely Comics before they became Marvel Comics, and his creation of Spider-Man and how they shut him down. And as Eli did warn us, you might get bit by a spider. So that's where we left off.
It's more likely you get bit by a spider than it is that you were born on another
Krypton.
planet and
Or fall into a vat
Tell
of
that to
radioactive
all the people who
ooze.
listen to our podcast that have been born on another planet, dude.
Well, I think the Joker story was pointed at disgruntled men working in factories. I think
Originally.
that is where they pulled it from.
Originally,
And there was
yeah,
a
that makes
lot of
sense.
that.
Again, for people listening who don't know this, the Joker is actually DC, not Marvel. Just want to
Right.
make sure not everyone knows that.
I will often reference the DC characters because
And
I
will-
love X-Men.
Eli doesn't sort them.
eventually, if DC can get their like cinematic universe on point and be consistent, they've released some good movies, but on the whole, they're not amazing. If they can get their stuff together consistently, we will be doing a lot of episodes, Eli. Because DC has some good stuff. They're just still trying to figure out their movies.
Yeah, well, and I think the problem with DC is Superman, right? He is their one of their flagship characters, but at the same time, like, okay,
He's
now
the
Kryptonite.
worst superhero.
Okay,
Like,
no, he's not the worst superhero. If you write him well, he's actually an interesting superhero. But you
That's
can't
true
write
for
him
anything.
exactly. But if you write him with Batman, they do pretty good together. If you understand,
well, this is my view on Superman. This is kind of a tangent, but so and they've done Lex Luthor with Superman a lot, and they rarely don't do Lex Luthor with Superman. Like he's always the one they pull out. But I think here's the root problem they have in doing Lex Luthor versus Superman. They always go for kryptonite. And I think that dilutes the amazing story that you have there, is that they are both essentially super powerful in the world. Lex Luthor has wealth and influence, and Superman is just strong. I mean, Lex Luthor has enough power to have the raw laws written that let him do terrible things.
Mhm.
How does Superman fight that? He's just strong. If Lex Luthor never breaks a law, but is a terrible person ruining the world, how do you fight that? And I think that is a story that should be told, because that is a problem Superman cannot beat with his fist or fry with his eyes.
well, that's why his nickname was the
good.
Boy Scout. He was the Boy Scout because he was a symbol, not so much nowadays the hand of justice. Like he comes in and he breaks everything. Like before, he was a symbol. He'd show up and he'd just stand there, and people were like, "Oh no, stop! Like don't hurt us!" Just because he symbolized hope. So when he showed up, that's all he needed to do.
But like I said, I think that's the story of Superman I would like to see.
That's why the movie was disappointing, because it was dark, and that shouldn't be Superman. That's Batman to a T.
Okay.
That's the difference there. Like Superman is light and hope, and Batman is the darkness. Like Superman's movie should take place during the daytime on a beach, and Batman should be the middle of the night.
Have you guys seen
terrifying
that
darkness?
that meme where it's like, I don't like DC movies. They're just all so dark. And then the answer is like, he's like, what do you mean? There's violence, death, and destruction in all the superhero movies. Be like, no. They're literally dark. And it like shows images, and it's like the DC movies, just like the lighting. It's very dark.
That's the
in
point.
all of them. Like,
And that's
it all-
okay for Batman
dark.
movies, because that makes sense.
Makes sense.
It's more intense. It's more brooding. Superman, no. Anyways, Bronze Era, which is, healthy 50 years, 40 years before everything we just talked about. The thing that I think kicked it off, and since we're talking about Marvel, I'm not even looking into DC. I'm sure there was some cool stuff that happened in DC that might have kicked it off. But the one thing that I think really switched over from the Silver Era to the Bronze Era is when Spider-Man failed to save his girlfriend, Gwen Stacy.
Yes, this was groundbreaking.
Oh, yeah, and neck breaking too.
Okay, so why is this a big moment? This moment.
So the heroes you look up to are valuable.
So this is Spider-Man's first love before Mary Jane.
Right.
He loves this girl. She is the damsel in distress. He's battling the Green Goblin.
And the hero always wins. That's the situation. That's what happens. That's what's always
hero
happened.
wins, gets the girl.
Golden Era,
at the
hero
end.
wins, and it's not scary. Silver Era,
Fairy
hero
tale.
wins, and there's some complexity to it. Now, in the Bronze Era, the hero just lost the person he wants to protect most.
No, you got to tell Joe what happened.
So, Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy fell. Wait, why do I have to tell him? Why don't you tell him? You're the amateur.
She's falling off of a skyscraper during a battle. The Green Goblin knew about Spider-Man's love for Gwen Stacy. And so has captured her and he's battling the Green Goblin for the girl, his hostage. And she's thrown off of the skyscraper. So, using his Spider-Man abilities, he's swinging through. But inertia gets the best of him. And her neck snaps. And she dies in his arms because he caught her and he didn't catch her properly.
Right. That is, I mean, that's a whole nother complexity. Like he couldn't get there in time. That's like he miscalculated his own momentum.
Yes.
Wow.
So
this is the first time, like in these superhero movies, it's like, oh, all your superpowers weren't enough. This.
Well, technically, they were too much. So.
Or too much.
That inertia was too much.
It just wasn't right, you know. And this was like.
It's a very visceral reading, right? Because you're reading something that you love and you're following along. And you're like, I can put myself in the mindset of Spider-Man. I'm Spider-Man. You know, I'm learning confidence just like Spider-Man. And then he loses the person he wants to protect more in the world from his own failures.
Mm-hmm. And this is the first time in this era since those horror comics went away that you had drama in your comics. Like this.
Well, you had something so powerfully bad happen because they gloss over that stuff. So something so horrific happens and Spider-Man still learns how to persevere.
As well as the importance of the mask, right? If the Green Goblin couldn't know about his love for an interpersonal relationship, right? Which is what the mask is doing. The mask is hiding your identity to protect the people who are close to you.
Right.
Yes.
This is the comic that comes out that says this is why it's so important.
Right.
And since then, it's all been a bit different. You know, this was a groundbreaking comic.
Well, because that's, in my opinion, that is, out of all the things that you read in comics, that is the most relatable thing right there. Because a lot of people are like, well, you don't understand my pain. Well, this Spider-Man definitely does. More than you think. And he doesn't give up. So that was why this was so like groundbreaking, because you see something so devastating happen and he still gets right back up. He doesn't try and murder the Goblin. I think he has some anger issues or some stuff he has to work through. But
I imagine after that, like that would wreck you.
He ends up getting back up and still protecting that city after all he went through, which is in my opinion the most relatable and amazing like hero that you can have.
So that's why that Spider-Man is the Spider-Man of the year.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the Bronze Era in a nutshell. Let's hop into just the present era real quick, because there was just one thing that they really added.
Wait, so what are some of the so the transition from the Golden Era to the Silver Era is a shift from black and white heroes and villains to more murky. The shift from the
more human,
right?
From silver to bronze.
Silver Age is a shift in the plot themselves. That the plots are no longer simple. You know how this is going to end. We've got more plot twists, and
the consequences, the outcomes are bigger. They can still mess up. They're found
muddied, right? Like the outcome is muddied now, right? It's
they will still do the right thing, like most of them, but in these comics now, the right thing may not be good enough.
Yeah, like what is it? I know that I read. Is it Pym, the original Ant-Man? who creates
Yes.
the pin particles, right?
I
Like
love him.
they end up like the particles damage his brain and becomes like abusive to his wife because
I didn't love that
he
part.
chose to be the hero, and this is the consequence he lives with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the newer renditions of him where that didn't happen. The ones I'm more fond of. But yes, originally I think that was. Anyways, that's basically that. That in a nutshell. That Spider-Man with Gwen Stacy is used during the Bronze Age in other stories. Like that's what kind of starts developing those more very complex, very hard-hitting, very powerful stories. So then we transition to about 1985. Is anything from 1985 on is present era.
Okay. And so we
I
can
think we're gonna cover present era next time.
No,
Yeah.
present era is literally 2 sentences.
All right.
So present era, basically the one shift that they just took from Bronze era and added to was quite simply, well, what if life isn't just superheroes and villains? What if you added anti-heroes to the mix? So this is where you start getting the Punisher. This is where you get Wolverine. This is like Wolverine you've had before, but this is where you get the duality of his character. This is where you're getting Frank Miller's versions of Daredevil that are really harsh hitting.
So you're saying what if? Have you watched the What If episodes on Disney Plus?
I have. We're not talking about those then.
Okay. All right. I just
I've watched those.
needed to clear that up.
Yeah. So the Punisher is basically an answer to heroes. Like, okay, heroes aren't doing the job properly. So what if we just had a hero that just kills all the bad guys and kills anyone who he deems as a bad guy?
Mhm.
And that's what the Punisher is. I don't know if you guys know the Punisher well.
familiar with the Punisher.
He's got guns and he kills criminals.
He's
Kills
very Judge Dreddy.
And he'll
He's
fight
very
exactly.
Judge Dreddy.
And he'll go toe to toe and fight with heroes.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I'm gonna do it my way.
I think his first one, he's hunting a hero.
I think he's in a Captain America one in his first.
Is it
I'm
Captain
not sure.
America? Anyways, yeah, he is. A hero does something bad, and that's his like debut. Is he's like, you did something bad, I'm coming for you.
But that's kind of, so to recap, it's larger than life heroes in the golden era, more complex, not just black and white and silver era, very hard hitting and powerful stories that are relatable in the bronze era, and now you get anti-heroes in present day. That's kind of the big ones.
Right.
All right.
Eli, do you want to head us out?
Thank you very much for joining us on the floor.
Wait! It seems like Marvel is slowly working towards the point where they're going to tell us the villains are the good guys now.
Well, so funny
doesn't
thing about
it feel like
there's
that's the direction
there's
we're
this
going?
movie coming out called Morbius, and you're not wrong. It's all I'm gonna say.
All right.
Um,
Now we can close it out.
No, I think what they're trying to say, that the villains are not people, but they are inside of people.
Yeah, like yin and yang. Everyone's got good. Everyone's got evil. Are you evil because you've done evil things? Can you be good? These are the questions they like to ask. Matrix asks hard questions. We've talked about this in Am I Alive kind of stuff. And all that fun things. Am I real? Do I think? Marvel asks the questions.
Am I
someone
real?
Evil? Is someone
Is
good?
Matrix.
What makes them that?
Am I good? Is Marvel.
There you go.
There
Am I
you
real?
go,
Is the
yeah.
Matrix? Am I good?
Matrix.
Actually,
Yeah.
it's Are They Good? Is Marvel.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
And X-Men was just a giant story about like how to approach racism. Like
Racism and any minorities. It's actually like
yeah.
mirrored
Just
in,
discriminations.
the LGBT community too, like all the gay rights and stuff. They had a lot of stuff for that too.
Which is part of Matrix. All right, we should end.
Engineer.
Wait on you, Eli.
Just keeps going. We promised it would end. It didn't.
The floor will never end.
All right. I don't even know what to say. Aaron, this is on you.
If you enjoyed this episode and want more on the topic,
We record a special treasure room for our patrons after every episode. In the regular episode, we go deep. In the treasure room, we go wide. To enjoy the bonus content, sign up at the fluorite level or higher.
There is a treasure room for every episode from August 2021 and on. That's double the content. 2 episodes a week instead of 1.
Go to www.patreon.com/floor, fantasy and lore. That's floor spelled FLORE. Select the Fluorite tier or higher. Immediately after each episode is released, the Treasure Room will post the bonus audio on Patreon. They are identified by the tag Treasure Room After and the title of the episode. You can also do a search for the keywords Treasure Room and find all the content you've been missing. Thanks for listening.
Leave us a review. Tell us why you like listening to us. Is it our awesome deep dives? Is it our amazing back and forth? Is it our charming good looks?
What would you like us to add or change? You can put that in the review as well. We read reviews.
Yeah, and if you're going to be leaving us a review telling us what you like about it, maybe you even want to share the content with your friends. Like and share on social media. You can join us on Twitter and Facebook. We post memes. And we actually started a Discord, so come play with us.
So a lot of the worlds we cover have a retcon. If you're not familiar with that term, it's reconstruction. Or sometimes we might use a bad source for some of our lore research. And if that happens, feel free to email us at floorfantasyandlore@gmail.com. That is floor spelled FLORE, fantasyandlore@gmail.com. And if you're angry enough, we'll read it on the air.
Yes, we will. Also, the Treasure Room is now available. We have locked a few secrets for everything we cover in there, and each week we add more.
And you can find the Treasure Room on patreon.com/floor, fantasy, and lore. And how do you spell that, Aaron?
That's lore with an F at the beginning. So it sounds like floor, but it's not the floor you're thinking because it's our floor.
We hope you enjoyed your time on the floor. Think about your favorite part of the episode. Now, think about your nerdiest friend. Who is it? What is their name? They want to know about the floor. Stop holding out on them. Go and tell them about your favorite part.
Because all of this is more fun together.